Hello. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for coming to this workshop. I'm excited to see you all, and I'm excited to talk today about women in tech history. And we'll be talking about women who have impacted history in the past, as well as looking to how you can create an impact in the area where you are today. I'm excited so much to see you all. Normally, I'm the only woman in the room, and so it's so fun to be at a conference where it's all women and see so many people. So how many of you regularly are the only woman in the room in the places where you are? No. A good number of you. That's been a lot of my experience, and so I'm going to talk through some historical people, a little bit about my experience as well, and then talk about why it is important for us to add women to our teams, and then also how you can add inspiring women into your circles to keep you motivated, to keep you going. Even if you are the only woman in the room, how do you find other people who are within your own sphere who can keep you going to provide your best impact? A little bit about me. I'm Amanda. I work at a large consumer electronics company here in the Bay Area. This is my family. And I've been in tech for over 10 years and have worked a variety of different roles. So I've been on the business side. I've done project management. I'm currently now working as a system administrator on our content delivery network team and helping keep our servers and our network up running around the world. So when we think about history, where are the women? Where are the female engineers? When I was searching for historical figures in engineering, I came across this book. And I thought, oh great, from the pyramids to spacecraft, here are all the engineers that I need to learn about in one spot. And it sounded interesting. There's over 110 engineers listed. And I looked at the table of contents, and you can see there is one woman listed out of 110 engineers here, and she's listed in the public health section. And I thought, okay, this is from DK, who's a major publisher, which was one of the things out of all the Amazon books that I had looked at that really caught my attention. This is, a reputable company who publishes for children, specifically about history, for adults, many nonfiction in multiple countries. I think they have over 62 languages. So it then hit me hard of, okay, wait, this has actually been my experience as a girl growing up and saying, oh, women aren't engineers. We don't see them. I don't know any of them. Why would you be an engineer? You're a girl. And I realized, oh, this is a lot of my story of seeing where are the engineers. They're missing, the female engineers that are in there. And so even as a woman who's been in technology for the past 10 years, it's only been recently that I've started to hear about Ada Lovelace and Grace Hopper, and these impactful women who've done so many things in our field of computer science and technology, and why are we not hearing about them? So that's really what motivated me to give this workshop today, was to tell you all about some of the amazing women. I went to people on my team and some of my colleagues and said, okay, who are the people who have inspired you? Who are the computer scientists that you've heard about? Because specifically for me in computer science, I've heard of some other engineering disciplines, but I really wanted to know, where are the computer scientists? So today we'll talk about some of these important women in history. Some of them are well known, but you still may not have heard about them. They've done pretty amazing accomplishments, and these are the few that we came up with on my team here. Yesterday in the keynote session, Ada was mentioned, and she's known for being the first programmer. She worked with Charles Babbage and provided a vision for computers beyond just a mathematical computational machine. So Babbage originally thought, great, we can add numbers. Ada was a mathematician, and she joined his team very early on. And she was the one who said, but what if we do something bigger than just adding numbers together? There's a Augusta Ada Lovelace Award now that's given by the Association of Women in Computing, and this award is given to individuals who have excelled in either outstanding science and technical achievement or extraordinary service to the computing community through their accomplishments on behalf of women. And so she's, 1815 was when she was born, quite a long time ago, and I don't always think of computer sciences existing back that far. And so you start to hear about these people and say, wow, okay, here's this woman, especially in the 1800s, who was well known for being, or I don't know if at that point she was well known, but we've seen her history continuing and the influence that she had continue along. The second person I'd like to highlight is Grace Hopper. So you may have heard of her because of the Grace Hopper and Computing Conference that's happened. I'm not sure when that started. The past few years is when I've heard a lot more about the Grace Hopper Conference, where many women go for different training to meet other people. It's one of the biggest computing conferences for women. And Grace Hopper, she was a computer programmer who helped develop a compiler that was the precursor to COBOL. And she also became a rear admiral in the Navy, and that's one of the highest ranks. And she became that at the age of 79, which I think is just amazing. This woman had such a long career. She actually was she had retired from the Navy, but was pulled back in because of her specialty in knowing how to do all of these computer communications. And so they awarded her this Rear Admiral Award, and she was also the oldest serving officer at the time. So she, fun fact, was also the person who found the moth that shorted out the Mark II computer. And so she's sometimes given credit for the term of a computer bug when we talk about bugs in our code. Well, in this case, there was a real bug that was in the machine, and that was causing the problems to happen. So I don't think she founded that term, but she was the person who helped popularize that idea because there was a real bug that was sitting in the computer. Annie Aisley, we've started to hear more about women in the early 1900s who did computing work due to the great movie that came out, Hidden Figures. Have any of you seen Hidden Figures? I really liked that movie, and it really opened my eyes to the work that these women as computers did in the industry for the space race. So Katherine Johnson was highlighted there. I thought about highlighting her too, but Annie Aisley was around the same time period, and I thought, oh, maybe you haven't heard about her before, so I wanted to highlight her. She worked as a human computer, doing computations for researchers, and as technology evolved, so did she. She learned, she kept up her skills. She was a person who was very much a pioneer in her field as well. And you can thank her for hybrid car batteries. So some of the code and the work that she did was really what propelled the early hybrid vehicles that we now have today. So I thought, wow, we've never heard of her. And here she's done something that we're using in our daily lives now, 100 years later, that she worked on from an early point of time. She contributed to numerous programs as a computer scientist, inspired many as an African-American woman, breaking down barriers for women and people of color in the STEM fields. And I love this quote that she said, I never set out to be a pioneer. I just have my own attitude. I'm out here to get the job done, and I knew I had the ability to do it, and that's where my focus was. So even in the face of discrimination, she persevered, and she said, my head is not in the sand, but my thing is, if I can't work with you, I will work around you. I'm not about to be so discouraged that I'd walk away. That may be a solution for some people, but it's not mine. And I love that attitude of, I'm here to do the work that I'm here to do, and no one's really going to stop me from being a barrier to getting the work done that I need to get done. So I really was interested in learning about her stories. Margaret Hamilton, one of my colleagues recommended her, and I said, I've never heard of her. And she said, oh, she was on the wall. We had a picture of her in my computer science classes in our hall. And oh my goodness, as I learned about her, I thought, wow, what an amazing woman. I wish I had heard about her earlier. She was a computer scientist, a systems engineer, and business owner. And she also was the director of the software engineering division at MIT Instrumentation Lab. And this is the lab which developed the onboard flight software for the Apollo space program. And she also created the term software engineering. And I thought, well, that's pretty important. Shouldn't we know about her then if she basically created a discipline here that we all work in? During her time at MIT, she wanted to give their software legitimacy, and just like other engineering disciplines, so that also those who were building the software would be given respect as well. So she made up the term software engineering to distinguish it from other types of engineering. And in this picture here, this is her standing next to the listings of the actual Apollo guidance computer code. So this is the printouts of all the code that was used for this space program, the guidance computer. Her code was so good that it may have actually saved the whole flight, because there was a situation where there's two computerized systems in the way that they built it, and one didn't really need to be doing something as they were coming back down to the Earth. One was taking in a lot of the electronic noise, and this overload started to cause the computer to run out of space for the other computer processes that needed to be happening. Margaret, thankfully, due to her forethought of what would actually happen, had anticipated this type of problem and had made the Apollo operating system robust against these type of failures. And so when the overloads came up, this feature that she had coded allowed the computer to drop the low priority tasks. And the computer was also programmed to automatically reboot, if needed, to flush out the unimportant tasks. And if this software had not functioned, the moon landing might not have actually happened at that point. So thanks to her code, the Apollo moon missions were successful, and President Obama in 2016 awarded her the Presidential Medal of Freedom for developing the onboard flight software. And the last person that I want to highlight is Sudha Murthy. This is a woman who has made great strides for women in engineering, specifically in India. She was the first female engineer at a company called Telco, and the way she got there was pretty interesting. She noticed that there was a men-only bias at the company, and she wrote to the chairman and said, "Hey, I'm noticing that there's an issue here." The chairman sent her an invitation for an interview and hired her immediately. So I loved her aspect of, hey, there's a problem. I'm going to make someone aware of it, and it changed something. So sometimes it's just as simple as that, as saying, wow, look, there's a problem. Are you aware that there's a problem? Can I have an interview? So she also initiated a lot of computer science education in India and got computer science in earlier schools. And she also was a computer science teacher as well as an engineer. So I want you to talk about and think through who are a few of the people who influenced you throughout your career, who inspires you, and take a few minutes, think about that, and then break into groups of 2 or 3 and share, if there was someone here who specifically stuck out to you as well, that's fine, but in your own career, who's been someone who's been inspiring to you? And then I'll call you back in a couple minutes. So I hope you got to hear some interesting stories. I know we don't have a whole lot of time each time to share. We're going to share a couple different times on some different topics. But I hope that you'll continue these conversations later too. It's been really fun for me to ask these questions to some of my other colleagues and hear their stories and hear who inspired them, because I think it really makes a difference then when we start to see, oh wow, sometimes it's not always the major things that we think, oh, I need to do something big to impact someone, but it's these small steps. And those are the things that sometimes actually are the most impactful for us. So I want to share a little bit about my experience being a woman in tech. This was an infographic that one of my colleagues sent to me So I've worked mainly as a system administrator, a system engineer, doing a lot of networking and server. And it's a little hard to see from this graph, but kind of the x-axis here is the number of developers doing that role, and the y-axis is the relative participation by men or women. And if you see, system administrators are at the very, very top of fewest women compared to a number of men. And even more so than, web developers, there's a good amount of web developers in general. There's a good mix of men to women. Obviously, these are all, 11 times. So there's way more men anyways in all of these professions, but it's kind of comparing the differences between the different type of roles. So I was surprised even to see like a system administrator, there are less women doing that role than an embedded devices developer. And I thought, wow, okay. But that's been very much my experience. And when I started to realize that this was actually a thing, in my undergrad, there weren't very many women. I was one of the only ones in my class, but we were pretty small, a smaller school. There were only about 10 people each year within the emphasis of information systems. So I didn't really think, it was that big of a deal until one day I went to a conference out of my first job out of college, and I was really excited to be there because I thought, okay, I'm the one person here from my company to represent. It was a storage conference, so learning some new different things. I was excited to be there. And it wasn't until I went into the restroom after one of the sessions and I realized the lights are off. That's interesting. And I realized the light's like a switch. It's not an automatic timer. So it's not, no one's been in here in the past 5 minutes. I don't think anyone's been in here all day. And I thought, it's almost lunchtime. Really? There's no one that's been in the bathroom to turn on the lights? And I don't know, maybe the last person turned off the lights, right? But so I went back to the conference room and started looking around. And, it's a little dark, so it's hard to see, but kind of looking for ponytails and seeing, okay, there's one over there, there's one over there. Oh, wait, but they have beards, too. Well, that's interesting. So that was really my first experience of saying, wow, here I am in this room, and I'm, one of the only or very few number of women that are here at this conference. And this is a big conference. There's thousands of people here. And even to the point at the conference when I went to talk to the organizers booth and just to meet them and say thank you for having the conference, and they said, hey, by the way, are you a technical representative, or are you a marketing person or sales? And I said, no, I'm a technical person. And they said, great, because we really like doing diverse marketing. We like featuring our customers in our marketing, and it's really hard to find technical women to put on our brochures. Would you be interested, in telling your story about how you use our storage platform in your company? And so I thought, wow, okay, so it's not just me. They're also realizing it's really hard to find the technical women at this conference as well to get this experience. So I enjoyed the conference. I came back a little disappointed that I hadn't made any young female friends. I made a lot of friends. Being the young, cute, out of college, you make a lot of friends. And so, but I had a blog, and I was pretty regular about blogging about my travels. And so I wrote about this conference, and one of the ladies who was in our department, but it was our IT department, it was upstairs. We kind of had two groups that had recently combined, so I didn't know her. She said, hey, I read your blog, and I'm really interested why you're so curious, like where all the women in IT are. And I said, well, now I know there's you, but before that I didn't know you were there. And like you kind of look around the room and you say, well, no one looks like me. Should I not be here? And that was one of the questions that I really had was, is this not a role for women to do? Because I'm the only one here. And I think that's something that a lot of times comes up. I had brought it up to my senior director when I moved to the current company that I'm at now. And he said, wow, I can't believe you would feel this way. Like, I'm so glad you told me this. I never would have assumed that someone walking in, would feel different, right? He's white male, middle age. And he said, yeah, that's a problem. I don't want you to feel that way. And so he really started working on the solution. And I'm so happy to say in the 5 years that I've been at my company, I've seen such a huge dramatic change. And it's really been due to this director pushing and making intentional choices on who we hire, how we go to women's conferences and hire, and looking in different places for diversity. So this is a picture now of some of the women or most of the women. This was one of our internal conferences that we had on International Women's Day. So going from, there were about 4 of us. I work at a really big company. And, saying, wow, this whole wall at the front of the room is now filled with women. Just made me really happy to see now there are people in my organization who I look around and there they are. So why do we need more women on our teams? Why is it important? Why does it matter if you're the only woman in the room? Well, women comprise 57% of U.S. professional jobs. And women hold 25% of U.S. tech jobs. Starts to get even smaller. Women make up 19% of U.S. software developers. And then we get to only 5% of tech leadership jobs are held by women. I know a few other of the seminars have provided some stats and numbers regarding this and some really good feedback, but for those of you who missed those presentations, feel free and take some notes. I think these are really ways that you can help your organization realize the business impact that women bring. Because when we go in and say, I feel bad that no one looks like me, someone may notice that, right? Thankfully, my senior director did notice, okay, that's a problem. But a lot of times you need to present, what's the business case? What are the numbers? Why does it make sense for the business to add more women onto our teams? So here's a few different items. Companies make more money when they have women on their teams. McKinsey published a report saying that those in the top quartile for gender diversity were 15% more likely to have returns above industry means. And these stats have personally made a difference to me because when I go and talk with my boss, when I say, hey, look, why aren't we hiring women? How come all of our new hires come in? Look, there's data to say that, do you want our team to make more money, to be more impactful in what we do? Yeah, generally, most people do, right? So if teams are smarter, if the group includes more women, its collective intelligence rises. This was from Harvard Business Review in 2011. Diversity of thought equals better innovation. So those who have more women are more likely to introduce radical new innovations into the market. We're in Silicon Valley, we're in tech. This is the place where you want innovations. And so if adding more women statistically shows that we then provide more innovation, then that's important for us. Even Tim Cook says, I think that the most diverse group will produce the best product. And diversity, we really see a lot of times, someone shared an example the other day here at the conference about airbags and engineering airbags and how, well, if we had actually had some women on the team, we might not have killed people with airbags initially when they came out. Airbags were designed for a 160, 180-pound man. And so when they hit women or children, they killed people. And so when we add diversity into our product team, into the groups that are actually making the products, if you think about minivans, how long did it take to get the door on the left side of the car right behind the mom so the mom can open the door and get right to the kid? It took a long time. What if there were women on that team earlier? I don't know if there were or not. But it just adds some different ideas into our product creation. And I think one of the reasons for me specifically now in thinking about this in the longer term is for our future generations. I was really shocked by this. This is a report from the Girl Scouts in 2012, and they said that 74% of girls in the U.S. are interested in STEM. And I thought, really? That's not what you hear. You hear that, oh no, girls, they don't like math. They're not good at math. They're not interested in it. It's just natural, right? No, 74% are interested. But when they don't see women in the field, they think maybe it's not supposed to be for them. And so nearly half of these girls in this study said that they'd be uncomfortable being the only girl in the group. From all of your hands that were raised, many of us have been the only woman in the group. So if our younger generation coming up is saying, yeah, I'm not really comfortable being the only person in the room, we're going to lose a lot of people coming into the tech sphere. And then finally, I really don't want this to be true anymore. The fact that if you went into a STEM career, you'd have to work harder than a man just to be taken seriously. And so seeing this, it's like, wow, I really want to remove this inequity from actually being real in the future for our girls who want to go into STEM. So again, the reasons we need to add more women into our teams is add more profitability, make better products, add innovation, and then also to make sure that we have role models for the girls who are coming into our next pipeline to bring the women. If we have a pipeline problem, well, there are 74% who might be interested. Let's give them a chance to actually be in here. Let's take a few minutes again. Out of these quotes, was there one that stuck out to you the most? You want to stick in your back pocket and hang on to it for future. So take a couple minutes, write that down. If you want to share, go ahead and we'll have a couple minutes for that as well. All right, let's come on back together. I know we could talk about this for a long time because we all have lots of stories to share. And so I hope through the conference, through the whole time that we're here, through our networking times, that we can enjoy that time with one another as well and sharing our experiences. So why does it, we know now it's important to add more women to our team, but what if you're the only woman on your team? How do you add more people onto your team? And I think there are some things that need to be done from a corporation level. NCWIT, which is the National Center for Women in Technology, has a great presentation that I've used some of my resources for this called 10 Actionable Ways to Increase Diversity in Tech. I have it at the end of my slides as some of my resources, so you can grab a picture of the link if you're interested. But so that's kind of from a corporate level and a management level as well. But for those of you who are interested in building your own networks and adding more women who look like you, who have similar interests to you, I think one of the things I always joked about with the colleagues on my first team, I said, well, I mean, if I come in, you don't even care if I got new shoes. I'm not really a big shoe person, but sometimes you want to notice something. You got your hair cut or you got new shoes or something. So it's the camaraderie sometimes of having another woman on the team. I love the men that I work with. They're great team members, but sometimes you miss out on that. So these were some of the ways that I've found to find other women and add them into your circle so that you can keep pushing on and be inspired as well. Look first internally at your company, I think, is one of the easier ways if you do have women there. So you can look on your online directory, see if there are people. They may not be on your immediate team. Like I said, the woman, she was upstairs, and I didn't realize that there were kind of two IT teams that we had until someone had mentioned, do you know her? And I said, oh, no. So ask other people, ask your manager. And then sometimes, if you look, there may be a women at your company, women initiatives network. Sometimes they have those at different companies, different affinity groups at each company is a good way to meet people. What I found also to be effective was setting up meetings for people. So in Silicon Valley, it tends to be a pretty low hierarchy type of culture. So meaning I don't need to ask my boss if I want to set up a meeting with his boss. I can just set up a meeting on his calendar if I want to go and talk to him. And a lot of companies in the Bay Area are this way. So if your company is that way, generally this is kind of something that may work out. If you find someone and you say, hey, I'm interested in getting to know you, set something up on their calendar. They may be a VP. I've met so many women in high places because, in a sense, they've been women. Because I've reached out and said, hey, I want to hear your story. I'm curious what your career growth looked like. I'm curious, what recommendations you have for me. Compared to some of the people on my team who've been at the company a lot longer, but they don't know these people because they haven't had a need almost to reach out to them. So that's something that you can do is kind of looking within your company and, when you reach out, asking specific questions. Like you set up the meeting, you took the initiative, so what do you want to learn from them or what do you want to know about them? Another place to look is within your industry. So things like this, conferences, looking at online groups are always important. Asking people who are respected in your area. A lot of times that's like been one of the ways where I've found online groups, because you start to hear, oh, okay, people keep talking about this. Every time I ask someone, hey, do you know any women who are in, my specific field? They'll say, oh, I know, I've heard of this one person. Well, go look them up on LinkedIn and see if you can reach out. I think a lot of times people want to build their network and they don't quite know how, and I think a lot of times just writing a nice note on LinkedIn and saying, I'm interested in meeting you, here's why, does one day work for you, makes it really easy for the person to respond and say, yeah, I'd love to help you. I think older generational women love seeing younger women coming into the roles, and so when you reach out, they're almost just as excited to see you coming in as you are to meet them. So one story that I have is at one of the conferences I went to. It was a Linux conference, and as you can imagine, lots of beards and ponytails, and so I walk in and I say, okay, we know there's not going to be very many women here, but when there are, I'm going to find them. And it's pretty easy, right? You just kind of look around and you can scan the room. So my two colleagues were wonderful, and they knew, as well as probably most people in my life at that period of time, that I was on the hunt, like to find other women who were technical. So I thought, okay, they weren't in my class, how do I find these people? And so they would come back and tell me, oh, I met this lady, and she does this. And so they were kind of my allies to help me find these other women at this conference. I found that going and sitting next to someone is a great way, a couple minutes, before the session starts, strike up a conversation with them. So one woman I met, and I got her contact information, and we emailed probably a couple times a year. I would set something on my calendar to just send her a note, say, what are you working on? Because I wanted to develop a relationship with her. And she had come back to the conference multiple times. So every time we went to this conference, because it was a yearly conference, we would meet up. And so we built a friendship. I didn't know her initially, but I found her through an industry event. So that's one way to meet other people as well that way. Another thing that I did was just looking online. At the time, I was living in LA, and I Googled women in tech in LA. And I found a group called Technovation Challenge. They teach middle school and high school girls about entrepreneurship, app building, technology, and they were looking for mentors. And I thought, well, the mentors will be other people who work in tech. Awesome. So at first it started out for me not as, hey, I want to go work and help younger kids learn technology. I just wanted to meet the mentors at that point. And I did. There were a lot of mentors that I did get to meet throughout the time. It also put in me a love of helping younger girls learn about technology. And it broke a lot of the stereotypes of them saying, wow, this is so fun. This is so creative. And since I did that, that was like very early on in my career, I've really started to, on the side, teach a lot of kids about technology. And I love when I have girls who come in and after doing a programming session say, I never knew programming could be so creative. And that's something specifically that I think girls don't think programming's creative or engineering. They think, there's this kind of stereotype of person sitting in the basement, eating pizza, like wearing a hoodie, never coming out and seeing the sun, never showering, not looking cute at all, right? 13-year-old girls, that's not what they want to be. So them understanding, no, wait, you can look cute if you want to look cute. You don't have to, which is awesome. And you can do things that actually relate to your life. So you want to build a website. You don't want to build a gaming website. Maybe you do. Some girls do. A lot of girls don't. But hey, you want to build a website about cooking. You want to post all your recipes on there. And one of my 13-year-old students, that's what she said. And she was like, this is so fun. I now have the tools to do all the stuff that I want to do. And now all my friends want to learn because they saw this website that I made. And that just really made me feel like, wow, okay, we're breaking down some of these pieces. So that was, my push initially was I want to find the other mentors to add to my circle. And I also ended up finding a love for teaching younger girls about technology as well. So another place is outside your industry. It's not always going to be the case that you find other women who are in your role. Like I said, for system administrators, there's very few. So I'm very excited to say on my team now, there is another woman. And I was so excited when I came to this team. I was like, wow, on the same team? There's only 8 people on this team. There's 2 of us. So, it's not always going to be the case that there are going to be other women who are in the exact immediate sphere. But I feel like it's still really important to have other people within your network who are people who are providing impact in whatever sphere they're in. So I have quite a few friends who are doctors, teachers, and these people are doing great work in their field. They're pushing through the stereotypes of being a doctor, a surgeon in a male-dominated field. I loved watching the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie On the Basis of Sex and just seeing her as a lawyer pushing through and fighting. And so those are the stories that really inspire me and say, okay, there may not be somebody sitting next to me at my desk who's fighting along with me, but there's all these other women. There's all of you who are doing what you're doing in your fields. And that's, I think, where we need to continue to share the stories. Some of that may be in books, some of it could be in lean-in circles, looking at community groups, asking around too. I think when you start to put the word out, people start to know, okay, here's a strong woman who's like pushing for something different, and they start to connect you with other people as well. So let's talk, this is kind of our last question to chat about with each other. In summary, as wonderful, we've talked about these wonderful women in the historical setting of how they've impacted computer science. And so when you think about what type of impact do you want to have, and what are the skills that you have that can help you propel this? And then additionally, think through a couple items of what are your next steps in getting to add women into your network. Do you have a good network already? Do you need to add more people into that to help you make your impact that you're looking to make? So go ahead, and then we'll wrap up in a few minutes.